I call this meeting to order for the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for Monday, January 27th, 2025. And would entertain a motion to acknowledge the minutes.
So moved.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
That would be for the 4 days.
Yes.
17th, 21st, and 22nd.
Yes. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Morning, Dwayne.
Good morning, Supervisor. Things are gonna warm up this week, so we will get outside and try and get a little work done. The roads will let us know where we need rock here before too long, I suspect, and we will go spread it where we need.
Are they gonna look for weeds while they're going down?
We probably won't be looking for many weeds, although the diesel are still apparent in most
Yeah,
spots,
yeah.
but there's really not much you can do with them. You really don't want to disturb them this time of year because that frees the seeds up. I brought the flyer for our safety workshop, gave each of you guys copies of that, just in case you missed the email. It's right there in front of your packet. Then also I went through the County Service Bureau, Engineer Service Bureau's website and pulled up some numbers from our other tier 2 counties in the state. What that is from Jefferson County west, every county is pretty much the same size with the same general makeup of roads, bridges, and pretty much employees. And looking at the total receipts, Jefferson County is number 3 in that grouping for total income between state road use tax funds and the money we get from the local contribution. I went through, and of the 9 counties, Jefferson County is either number 8 in 2023, number 9 in 2024 in what we spend in administration and engineering. So we're just, I printed these out just to kind of let you show on a broad brush where we spend our money. So I've got one that's ranked by admin and engineering. And if you go to the next one, we've got construction. Or in 2023, Jefferson County spent the most on construction. And last year we were number 2. So we're spending our money on getting stuff done, not on paying the office help, which includes me. Same thing, roadway maintenance, Jefferson County is number 3. And then general roadway, which includes equipment purchases. In 2023, we were number 3. And that's the year we bought the dump truck and also the 2 belly dumps. So we spent quite a bit that year on equipment. And then this past year, we just bought 1 belly dump in that mini hill and we were number 7. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea of where, well, by comparison to other counties in the state where we're sitting, with how we spend our money. Hopefully we're accomplishing what I think with that, with that workup. Other than that, we're working on the bridge. They've got 1 column, they've got the steel tied, they're working on the other. Warm temperatures, I would anticipate that they'll get the main support columns poured this week, at least that's what we hope. It's good progress with help from Mother Nature. That's really all I have.
Any questions for Dwayne?
Nope.
Suzie? Authorized, number 2, authorized chairs to sign grant agreement. Iowa Department of Transportation
And has that, that's for our Libertyville Road rehabilitation resurfacing project.
Is there any discussion? I would entertain a motion to approve that request.
So moved.
This is the grant we received through Representative Miller Meek's office.
No further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I copy she. And I'll see the auditor, and we have the auditor's signature.
Auditor's right there.
Yeah, we have an auditor in the room.
Discuss and consider the closing of Palm Boulevard Bridge.
Yeah, we are pretty well at the point where we can close that and have the folks that live down there use Palm Boulevard to access out to Glasgow Road. I didn't really, we don't have, it's not urgent, so I didn't ask Abby to make a public hearing on that, but it's something that in the near future we should do.
Chauncey's on, so let's, Chauncey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Can we set a date for a public hearing today, or do we need to specifically stay that on the agenda?
No, you can set the date for the public hearing. What's agenda item 2, right?
Yes, no, one below that, there's no number on it. It says discuss and consider closing Palm Boulevard Bridge.
Yeah, so you can discuss and consider that. That needs to be set for a public hearing. So during that discussion, you should set a date for that.
Okay. So, Abby, tell us when, where, why, and how.
I would assume a minimum of 2 weeks.
Okay. So we're looking then at today's 27th, so we're looking at the 10th of February. We're probably gonna have a pretty full schedule that day. With the, with IPIB and with, person coming from the medical examiner's office and whatnot, so we were to the 17th.
We're not here on the 17th.
Oh. How critical is it?
No, we're in no hurry.
Okay. So the 24th,
Yeah, that should be fine.
so would I have a motion to set a public hearing for the closing of Palm Boulevard Bridge on the 24th of February
So moved.
at 9 a.m.? That work?
Yep.
We have a motion and a second discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Gosh,
Good morning.
I'm surprised you're wearing a shirt as warm as it is.
A little brisk this morning, but it's not
Okay.
bad. I really don't have a lot to talk about. We have 2 applicants that are in the interview process. They both want just part-time or PRN positions. So one of them is a paramedic. The other one is an RN who has some pre-hospital experience. So basically it'll be the same as paramedic. We just have to have a specific authorization from the medical director to allow the nurse, the RN, to work on the trucks, but otherwise it's no different. So they're still in the interview process, so we'll talk more about that later on. We did get another vent from the state, so we'll have a ventilator on each ambulance now moving forward. So we'll get that third one. Make sure it operates like it's supposed to, and we'll get those all situated in the rigs and have those ready to go. We got new shocks on 52. That's been the one that the oldest ambulance we have. Got new shocks on it from Fessler's. want to drive that around today and run it through the gamut and see if it did the trick. And then we'll go from there, so. Otherwise, that's really all I've got for now.
You guys were busy over the weekend, at least making noise with the sirens.
Yeah, I mean, we do that sometimes, we just run up and down
Yeah.
Burlington. Yeah,
Oh, I know, I was getting the oil changed on the car while I was there at Fessler's, and you went out, and the fire department went out, and the sheriff's department went out, and the police department went out.
sometimes we race just for fun.
I see that,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Any questions for Josh?
Nope.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You do a good job.
Thank you, sir.
Number 3, discuss and consider joint agreement between Jefferson County and the city of Fairfield, and I bet that's why you're all here. Would you do me my favor? And so review it, I would appreciate that. And in the meantime, Abby, I will get this out. So if I seek permission from the board here, if I may speak on behalf of the board.
Granted.
So, we've had discussions with you and Melanie and Ed. And we've mentioned several times that, we're not opposed to the development or anything of that nature, but the board has expressed concerns regarding jurisdiction and whatnot over the farms. And so I wrote this up and then put it on the agenda with the approval of the board to pass it on to the city of Fairfield for their review and consideration. And essentially, it's pretty straightforward. It says, be it understood by the foregoing that in return for the approval of the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for the Sunrise Trail Urban Renewal Plan and subsequent annexation of the Mazdam Barns, Evergreen Ridge Stock Farm, and let me stop there for a minute. On the website and everything, that is how it is listed, so I decided that language should reflect that. By the city of Fairfield, the city of Fairfield agrees to grant complete autonomy to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors and the governing board of the Mazdam Barns, Evergreen Ridge Stock Farm for the operation, preservation, and protection of said Mazdam Barns, Evergreen Ridge Stock Farm, notwithstanding any ordinances, including but not limited to zoning ordinances currently constituted or may be constituted in the future by the city of Fairfield. This also agreed that Jefferson County and the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors shall maintain complete unrestricted jurisdiction into perpetuity over the operation and use of the Mazdam Barns, Evergreen Ridge Stock Farm, and there shall be no financial commitment consideration from the city of Fairfield. In other words, we're not asking now or in the future for any financial support for the said operations and use of the Mazdam Barns, Evergreen Ridge Stock Farm as a result of the annexation. And so, in speaking with Chauncey, you felt that the proper procedure was to send this to the city of Fairfield first before we approved it for their review and hopefully subsequent approval.
Perfect. So, I mean, that's ultimately our feeling as well. We want to make sure that the county's satisfied. And if the council can agree to this, we'll just move it forward and see what they say. And I mean, I don't know what their discussions will be, but I'll take it back and go back and forth. But we want to make sure that it's preserved and it's maintained and the county has, it said everything we would think. So do you have any input? Okay.
My name's Tony.
We've discussed it just privately among ourselves during some work days and stuff. We really don't have a huge concern, a big concern when we first heard is where we're at with the barns, because I doubt they bring up the city code. They're old and they need some repair. And that was our concern, is like, if this is just gonna open up a can of worms.
Right, right.
The other concern was animals, if we can still bring horses in for a day or two event. There's chickens on the site all the time, but I think we can keep under it's strictly just for the kids.
Yeah, and
So,
and I believe that we're going to change some of our code so that we have the preservation district, and I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, we'll send this to the attorney, and then we'll have everybody talk and figure it out, because it is on the
National Historic Roads.
the National Historic
However you say it.
Registry.
Yeah.
Somewhere in somebody's history,
Registry.
yeah,
Yeah, so
and it's expressed by the young lady that was here. Her parents were the original owners. And she were,
Mary letters, yeah.
yeah, she was not quite 100 yet.
and you,
98,
Yeah. so what other concerns do you have?
I think, go ahead, Joe.
I've thought about it here over the weekend, and I thought about the playground equipment, the liability, because you know there's gonna be kids in this development. Are they gonna be going over there on that playground equipment, liability, and this and that is kind of a little bit of a concern for me. And I mean, playground equipment is there. How do we control it? Tony, do you have any input?
We work with the insurance lady that comes down that covers the county and the city.
Mhm.
And there's like a 54-page safety manual that we're following. The fences around it, it's only 4 foot tall. I don't know how you're gonna keep kids from getting in there, but we plan to have that locked up where you can't just openly go in there. It's historical equipment, so it doesn't quite meet today's safety suggestions.
The ASTM standards.
Yeah, so what the insurance company's telling us, like for instance, the merry-go-rounds, we might have to put a governor on them so they can't just freewheel. The slides and stuff, if they're a certain so many feet off the ground, you've got to have 16, 18 inches of mulch underneath. So if we become annexed, there's a set of rules we need to follow. We'll just have to make sure we're following that playground manual put out by the.
Gonna have to keep Leon off the equipment.
Yeah.
What's that?
So you're gonna have to keep Leon off the equipment.
Yeah,
Well, but you really don't foresee any huge expense in getting it in compliance.
We might want to put up more fencing, so we might have to put up some more chain link fence. Because we've added several pieces to that than our original plan. We was able to buy some more Loudon stuff, and we want to show it, it's
Yeah.
part of Loudon's history. But,
No, I'm not against the annexation. I just was concerned about the liability on the playground equipment, what it was gonna cost to do that stuff.
right. Well, and I think, and I guess the attorneys would be able to chime in. I don't think any of us are immune, you know, from tort liability and those sorts of things, but you know, it's just, we'll keep working on this to make sure that everybody's happy. We need to have some sort of an agreement to make this thing go through. We want to make sure the county's satisfied. We want to make sure that our legal side's, you know, satisfied. We want to make sure that we're in compliance. We'll have to talk to council. But I think that we're making progress. And ultimately, that's kind of why we're here, is because we want to grow, but we also want to protect our heritage, those sorts of things. You know, and yeah, I understand that we've got, you know, repairs to buildings, and, you know, we can't, just because, you know, we have an older building that, you know, if, you know, things fall apart, that we don't say, well, you don't have to repair them. I mean, I don't know how all that is supposed to be, but that's definitely the conversations we need to have. At the end of the day, we're talking about preserving the site, make sure the county maintains control, and that we're trying to reduce everyone's liability in case something happens. Is that fair?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
And to me, the operating board's in here, and I'm sure the city council will look at it.
Yeah.
But is, you know, say notwithstanding any ordinances, including but not limited to zoning ordinances that are currently constituted or may be constituted in the future. And then the other thing, and Tony brought up when we're talking about the barns and preservation of the barns, they're subject to certain rules and restrictions because of being on the National Register of Historic Places and the grants that were received, and right down even to the color of the paint on the shutters and so on and so forth. And I can remember when I think we originally painted those green. And we
Yeah, I
were
think
told that they couldn't be green, that they had to be black or vice versa, whichever.
Yeah, I can't remember, but.
Yeah, so I mean, they get pretty persnickety on,
Right. I believe the Carnegie building is the same way, and we have to be careful. I could be wrong, but I thought the Carnegie building is as well. And yeah, typically when you're on the National Historic Registry, it tends to be a little bit more expensive because things have to be maintained in the way that they were. And sometimes those things aren't as easy to accomplish as we want them to. But we don't want buildings burning down. We don't want, roofs leaking. And, when you're talking about, shake versus shingles versus
Yeah.
cedar siding versus vinyl siding, those sorts of things. So we get it. So I'll take this in front of council and see what they say and what their opinions are. We'll just, and if they've got questions, then we'll move them back and forth until we get it right.
sounds like a winner.
Yeah, so I got one more question. Maybe Ed, you can answer. How close is this development to the barns?
To that west corner of the barns would be the closest, and
Yeah.
that's maybe 100 yards, maybe less.
Yeah, maybe less than that.
Yeah.
I mean, our,
50 yards.
the Barnes has got a line fence there.
Yeah.
That butts right up there. We don't do anything, but it's
There's
on the
not-
west side of the trail.
Just, I see no problem. I just was curious to know how close it was.
Yeah, I think this is a good direction. Over the weekend, I was thinking that it would be like a conservation easement. So if someone when we were given the Natty land, basically it was a conservation easement, and that was defined within the easement as to what the ground could and couldn't be used for. This is a National Historic Site, so it could be put in that context of an easement for, the preservation of a National Historic Site. And in perpetuity is fine. I think the conservation easements are generally like 99 years, but I think it's a good way to go.
I'm old enough now that I'm part of history, so I can be on the site.
Are you on the historical register?
I'm on the historical register. They're wondering how the hell I lasted this long, but it's okay. So any questions? We'll just,
Well, I know in the past, we've had good relationships with the city. We've
Yeah.
had 2 or 3 grants from the local office sales tax. We've had good support from the chamber and good support from Terry Baker and stuff. So we work back and forth. I don't foresee any changes that way as far as we.
no, and as we've said all along, we're in support of the development. There's just that, it's something as simple as what you said there about the playground and not the city was gonna do anything about the playground. My point simply is that when you start having conversations about changing some of the dynamic, then other things seem to come in
Right.
into play. I always remember, I always took to heart what Pat McAbee said. There is no ironclad agreement that can possibly be developed that's gonna prevent you from getting sued, because perception is that you have deep pockets.
Right.
And so people are you do what you can do and to eliminate as much risk as you possibly can in terms of, but you are, what's the word looking for? We are all just, it's the first place they're gonna look,
Right.
because obviously, the thought process is the county has more money than I do. So there's no point going after me.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is we're governed by state and federal law, and that's why the ASTM standards and the ANSI standards are set in place. Is if we're following those guidelines, then if somebody does get hurt, something does happen, and we followed them, and then it doesn't come back on us financially or the county financially, and Because people can, let's say, go on the playground and you've got an old tractor. That's why municipalities don't have old cars and tractors in their playgrounds anymore, is because somebody gets hurt and that's not what the intention was. But if somebody were, let's say they were on the top of a slipper slide and they elected to jump off of it and break their arm, then we wouldn't be liable. But if they slid down and they hurt themselves, then we might be. Just depends on what's happened. And so those sorts of things that we always have to consider. But when this is all said and done, this is a historical place, so we're trying to keep it as is. And then make sure, and the county wants to have oversight on that. And, we're gonna work with that. I'll do the best.
And just so you know, in the interest of full disclosure, I did reach out to the city development board.
Mhm.
See if, and the term I used was variance. Knowing what chapter 368 of the Iowa Code said, but I asked the city development board if there was a possibility that, and I didn't say, look the other way, that's not how I put it, but my point was that, did they have the authority to grant a variance regarding the donut hole or the island? And she said, absolutely not, that they could not. And her recommendation was a legal agreement. And so I sat down and I wrote this up and then ran it by Chauncey and his recommendation, like I said, was to provide it to the city to let them.
And if they've got questions or if they want to massage it, then I guess we'll have more conversations, but all I can do is put it in front of them and run it up the flagpole. I mean, that's
Yep.
why I'm here. So I appreciate the efforts and you guys working on it as much as we are, trying to find something that we've got some middle ground and move forward. Do you have any other input, Ed?
Sounds good.
Okay, very good. Easy.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Thank
Bet,
you.
bet.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tony, for being here. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think I'm gonna move on. You guys are on your own.
Okay. We're at committee reports. Yeah, trucking right along.
I had the ambulance meeting the other day, the three-legged milk stool.
Okay,
And and just for the record, our next meeting is April 15th. They are in the process of dissolving the 2080. They're gonna write something up and they're gonna give it to all three lawyers.
oh, yes, 3 hours, yes.
Right. And that's three. And I think the stumbling block would be, because I was asked, how are you gonna divide the money up? Because there's 70-some thousand, I think 73,000 left in the pot.
Well,
I suppose there are two ways you could do that.
yeah, I'll give it all to us. That's one way.
That would be for the ambulance, not us,
Well, right,
or let them divide by three.
yeah.
So I just want you guys to think about that. We've got a while to do.
Well, I would be tickled pink if they gave it to the ambulance, but that being said, logic dictates because all 3 contributed to it.
That's right. So I don't know. So maybe we could still talk to them a little bit about that.
Of course, Doug could instruct the member that represents the city, and we could instruct the member that represents the county to vote 2-1 to give it to the ambulance, and then it would be perfectly legal.
That would be a way to do that.
Did you do that? Yes, that's one way it could be done.
So that being said, the other thing I want to tell you is Connie Boyer had called me. Conley's contract ended in October of last year.
Oh, okay.
So since that time, we and the city have been paying Conley's without a contract essentially. And I think the service agency is going to get together and try to extend that contract. I've already talked to Richie. He does not want to, he's not going to raise the price. So, it's just a simple matter of extending it.
Great. So I'll have to look. I'm not even sure who's on the service agency.
I am. I
Okay,
think Joe's the alternate,
okay.
but I'd have to check that out. I'm not sure.
Congratulations. So,
So you'll handle it.
Well, the thing is, Joe, you'll have to go to and vote.
yeah, and
Yeah.
send an invitation to Richie.
Richie. Yeah, and I told him I would let him know when that was.
And the only thing that I could see that would change necessarily in the contract was if the laws changed regarding certain recyclables. Because in the contract, it states what
Mhm.
the charges are for this or that. and
Yeah.
whatnot.
And when I had talked to him, he just said, well, I'm not gonna up the,
Right.
prices stay the same, but I need to tell him that
Right.
or ask the question.
So, yeah, I suppose sooner than later, right?
Yeah.
Are you done?
Yeah.
You're kind of short on words today.
I'm sure glad you're sitting close to her because she can't reach me from where she's at. So you go ahead and smack in.
I can, probably not fast enough.
Probably not fast enough.
So I went to the Chamber of Commerce, had their open house Wednesday morning, and I slept over there for a little bit, met some of the new chamber members and had good conversation with Mindy and everybody. And then on Thursday, I went to Centerville for the Sitka meeting, and if I understand it right, I obtained $25,000 from them for bridge replacement here in the county. They had that, we was wanting more than that, but we ended up, they had 25,000. And free money is free money. If you can get it, take it. Because they didn't know the next fiscal year if they would have anything. They don't usually know till the legislature's getting about done for this year before they really know on what they get. So that's all I had.
I do have one other thing to say.
Sure.
Aren't we having a conference board meeting on Wednesday? Because I see it's not on our agenda. The packets that, and I know Abby was not here to work on the agenda.
I'm on the book,
I got down 10
Yes.
o'clock.
8:30.
8:30.
Oh, 8:30
Yeah,
on Wednesday.
yeah.
Mhm.
But he would be posting the agenda. I don't know if we need to
Okay.
be.
I just,
You guys vote at it though?
Yes.
is it too late to correct that?
No.
Okay, thank you, Abby.
You'd have done it to begin with. No,
She wasn't here. She was.
of course, you are close enough to him, so I guess.
And apparently Kay.
Yeah, that's true. Good.
Go
point.
ahead, Abby.
So,
You can see me do that.
yeah.
So I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, that's fine. It was fault that we didn't get on there. So we gotta.
We'll
correct
go
it.
with that,
Oh, yeah,
okay?
okay.
I got broad shoulders.
So I had Susie's favorite meeting Monday, which was early childhood. And a couple of things come out of it. We seated some new members. And we approved the that's what I'm looking for, criteria for preschool scholarships. And that was pretty much it, even though we had 13 items on the agenda. We were done by 4:30. And one of the
Wow.
greatest things that's happened was that we finally got through that they didn't have to do a roll call vote on every single action item. So it's just yays and nays now. So it takes 45 minutes less just because you're not having to go through every board member to.
Good job, Lee.
Yeah, so then it's third meeting, which is Southeast Iowa Response Group, or what is referred to as hazmat. And we had some long conversations regarding whether or not financially, for lack of a better way of putting it, was prudent, belonged to it, it's a per capita charge is about $1. So it's a little over 15,000. And you can roll the dice to be sure that you're not gonna have a hazmat incident. And then they would just charge you when they do it, which can be pretty expensive. Where this way, there's no charge because you're a member. So we had that conversation. And then regarding incidents, there's a sanitation recycle center over there. I'm not gonna mention the name because I don't want to get anybody in any legal trouble, but they had a fire and they had hazard material runoff. And they have allegedly been taking in hazardous material in violation. And so when there was the fire and everything, it just exacerbated the problem. The DNR is involved and the Attorney General's office is involved in that. And then I had 1015 Transit. And the biggest issue there was dealing with, it's a little hard to explain on one level, but you may remember, and some folks that are listening may remember, here, I don't know, this was what, 2-3 years ago, 1015 Transit took over the fixed routes in Ottumwa. And through mutual agreement between the city of Ottumwa and 1015 Transit. But the DOT sets up the reimbursements, still views it as two separate entities. And so consequently, the cost to run the fixed routes is significantly less than the cost to run public transportation for 10 counties. So we're sitting over here on the one hand on a big bucket of money that the state's not allowing us to tap. $1 million, actually. On the other hand, we are 2 weeks from closing the doors because we don't have any money coming in on the transit side. So Jay finally got the DOT to understand we are all the same entity, and they released that money. But the issue is that we've been out now 7 months and there's no signed contract from the DOT or the feds in terms of the money. And then the issue is compounded by the fact that we are in desperate need for buses.
I was just gonna ask you that.
Right. And so, and as Susie's well aware of, and others, if I order a bus, it's just kind of like an ambulance. It takes 18 months to get a bus. So we're 7 months out with no signed contract, so there's no revenue coming in for the buses, and then we've got another 18 months before we could get the flipping bus. So he's been in constant communication. I've asked him to send me the information. I was going to reach out to Senator Sinclair and Senator Rosenblum, is because they both were former members of 1015 Transit, and they may be able to help light a fire under the DOT. I don't know. So that, basically the rest of the stuff was just normal day-to-day business. Our veterans, so to date, we spent through November, we spent $59,000 on veterans transportations. Jefferson County has had 38 riders this fiscal year at a cost of $5,200. Wapello County has had 131 riders to date in November through November at a cost of $26,000. I'm going to have a conversation with Ray, seeing as how he's been over there, and maybe he can put a bug in somebody's ear, because they provide a significant amount of money, Wapello County does, to veterans. And since there's been a change in leadership there, and Ray is handling it for us, for them for right now, we're gonna see if we've talked to Wapello County about not giving it to transit, but being more aware that they are the largest user and they need to contribute some money to this transportation. And we're also right at a point where we're just about ready to be able to accept donations and stuff. We set up a 501c3, so and that's all I had.
Got a question. So
Sure.
where do you get money for the riders? For the veterans and stuff? Is it through donations or? you
We
said
can't
you
take
could-
donations right now. That's why we set up a
So
501c3
where was money coming from to operate it?
out of our operating expenses.
Okay.
So basically the counties, each county, there's 10 counties at 1015 Transit. That's how I got its name. It's 10 counties and we're in region 15. So that's how the term 1015 came up. And so each county contributes $2,500 as kind of a membership or whatever. So years ago, we as a board voted to take that $25,000 and apply it towards veterans transportation, having really no idea that it would balloon into the program that it is today.
Yeah.
We're spending between $150,000, $200,000 a year on ridership. And that comes out of all of the other funds that we receive because we don't charge the veterans for the transportation. Most of the expense is, as folks are well aware of, our veterans have a lot of, potentially have a lot of doctor's appointments and stuff, and they're usually in Iowa City and places of that nature. So we take them and we sit there till they're done and then come back, or, so there's a fairly significant expense associated with that, as well as the mileage, the fuel. And we, even though veterans can get reimbursed for the cost for the rides, we don't charge them. And so I don't know if they apply for reimbursement or not, I have no idea.
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah, and I mean, generally, like I said, we don't charge, so we don't know whether or not they, now, that being said, if it's a Medicaid trip, then we could get reimbursed as well, but most veterans are on VA, so Medicaid doesn't come into play. So in reference to our revenue, most of our rides are in town, on fixed routes, or like here in Fairfield, they're $2 rides. So basically, it really doesn't cover the cost of operation. But we get transportation dollars from the Iowa Department of Transportation and from the Federal Transportation Administration. And then we're subject to their rules as far as what kind of rides we can provide and that sort of thing. And there's a requirement on the transit buses, not on the fixed route, but on the transit buses, there's a requirement that every ride, every day, open to the public. And we had at one point in time, a big fight with Federal Transportation Administration because I refused as the chair to allow the general public to ride on Head Start buses. I would not allow it. Because since every ride every day is open to the public, the feds were saying, well, you have, if the public wants to ride that bus, they can. And I said, I'll send a separate bus. I'll make sure that they get a ride, even if it's just one person on a bus. But I am not going to allow the general public to ride on Head Start buses because you're picking kids up where they live and you're dropping kids off where they live. And then you're letting potentially somebody know and was not going to allow it. And if we lost funding for it, so be it.
Yeah.
They
Lee,
capitulated.
thank you for doing that, because what could go wrong?
Right. Yeah. So I think there were some, what's the word I'm looking for, folks that go, oh yeah, it's kind of like the playground equipment thing. You don't think about it until you think about it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's, so.
Good idea.
Anyway, long story short, so we get the majority of our revenue through transportation dollars from the state and from the feds. And we grew when we separated from the city of Atumwa because we were combined at one time, OTA and 1015 Transit. When we separated from Atumwa, we had 29 employees, and that included our administration. We're well over 100 now. And we had no idea that it would ever grow to the extent that it has.
Well, I see them around Fairfield. They've all got the emblem on the door, which is a good idea to know that they're who they are and what they're doing.
And to anybody that's listening, if you're looking for a part-time job or a full-time job, or you want to supplement your income, Jefferson County needs drivers, bus drivers, car drivers, and minivan drivers. Contact Jay Allison at 1015 Transit in Atumwa, and we'll get you set up. So,
I have another question.
okay,
When you pick up a disabled veteran that needs assistance, does he have to provide somebody with him?
that's up to him.
But the drivers don't get out and do
Yes,
assist.
we do.
They do? Oh, they do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they'll get them into the office of the
Yep.
doctor and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
In and out of the, we have lifts
Yeah.
and so on and so forth, but
Okay.
if they feel that they need somebody with them up there, whatever, that's what we don't, but we will assist them in and out of the vehicles and that sort of thing. Any other questions? Public comment? Any public comments?
Good job.
Hearing none. Whoops, let me go. Oh, let's see what we have here. We have claims in the amount of $83,589.24. Would you like to review them before we make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to look at it.
In the meantime, I'll let the world know that we're gonna have a budget work session. And Abby's gonna tell me what time that's gonna start.
Where you want it to.
Oh, okay. Not quite as plugged up as yours.
Better.
Yeah. Would you speak back to what one with the fan? Oh, okay.
It's cold.
So I forgot to sign that.
Huh?
Forgot to sign.
Oh. Shame on you.
Abby, does Pekin have school next on the, what, President's Day?
They do not, or they do have school events.
So you can come to work, right?
They do have school.
So did you watch the game last night between the Chiefs and the Bills?
Oh, yeah,
That was quite a game.
yeah. We need to sign off
Yeah.
on it.
I need to sign it too, I forgot. Did you watch the one before?
I turned it on long enough to see that when Philadelphia scored their 40th point, I thought, this is over. So I just went on and watched something else, but I don't remember what it was. Actually, I think I went for a ride.
And your motorcycle?
Yep. Yeah, one of those like this. So I would entertain a motion to approve claims in the amount of $83,589.24.
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So we shall we'll adjourn and then reconvene at 9:30.
Sounds good.
So motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We will resume, folks, at 9:30.
Is any Tom's on? Is he the only one? Anonymous.
You had initially budgeted 2,500 for webinars. And I believe you had both of those, but I'm not positive that you only spent 1,347. Does anybody know if there's more webinars to come or if they already are completed with
Deal
with
is working
those?
with, who was it?
Call cop, wasn't it? They was,
Where?
weren't they talking about
Yeah,
that?
it was,
call
I
cop
think it was
program?
all through that same
Yeah, they've already committed money to that.
$20,000 for
Yeah.
that, but none of that has
Okay.
been expended
No.
so far.
Cause I
And
don't
it-
think
and it
that
was
talk,
up
I
to
think it's like,
20,000.
in April, I think that is.
Yeah, that sounds right. And you expended the 9,996 for the t-shirts. So total so far that you've expended 11,343, and you have an additional up to 20,000 committed for the tall cop programs.
So remind me or enlighten me or whatever, is there anything like ARPA where it has to be committed by a such and such a date?
No,
And also any interest we make up stays in the fund.
and I lowered your fund balance estimate, your expenditures for the current year to maintain a positive balance in that fund. So I shifted everything to next year's expenditures,
Thank you.
but it'll still be available this year if you need it, if you come up with a project.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
And I just budgeted the full amount in case you do come up with something that way, it'll be available for you. So I think that's it on that. Your current fund balance is 250,000 in there. See that at the bottom of the
Yeah,
sheet?
I saw that.
Yeah. But, I got some interest estimates from Mark on that, so that's why you're budgeting a little bit more than that for expenditures for next year. And then on the rural fund, you had asked what it would take to get to $1 million ending fund balance, Lee. So that is showing what the levy would have to be to get us there. Increase of 65 cents, 66 cents. And then this shows where we're at compared to all 99 counties on the rural only levies. That includes the rural basic. Some counties have rural supplemental, which we don't have. And also unified law enforcement, which we don't have. That's taxed only on the rural taxpayers. So this is the current fiscal year that we're in now. We're number 2 for lowest rural only rate in the state. The average is $3.32461 per thousand. So we're less than half of that. I think that's something to be proud of, but at the same time, we may need to go up a little bit on that just because we would be spending through reserves with this proposed budget.
So let me come at it from a different, let me ask it in a different way. Or ask the question a different way, because that's a pretty significant jump. So the 217 reflects the jump, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we're at 151 right
Right.
now.
Currently, the last sheet we had, we were projected it to be at 567,000.
Yeah, which is a reasonable fund balance, but it's burning through reserves and we may not be able, if we have a limitation order next year, we would not be able to generate any additional revenue.
So so setting aside, where would we? And I'm at, you gotta have a crystal ball, and I understand that. But where do you think we need to be to not burn through reserves without overburdening the
Well,
taxpayer?
even at this, we're projecting running through some reserves because it would be going from 1.05 million to 1 million. Now, this is worst case scenario always.
Right.
We never expend everything that we're planning on, but yeah, let me look back and see where we've been ending up and see where.
I mean, I don't know,
we need to
I
be.
just picked $1 million, I guess, kind of as a magic number, but
Yeah,
$750,000. I mean, if we're not burning through reserves.
this, like I said, this is projecting burning through reserves, but that's only if everybody expends everything that's in the budget, which never happens. The problem is, this is where this legislation is really bad, because do I think that less than this would be a good ending fund balance for us? Yes, but then only for the next couple years, and then we're gonna need more. And what if we have a limitation order in effect and we can't get more then? This might be our only chance to be able to increase this levy.
By moving it to 217, that still only puts you at 9th.
Yeah,
That's not,
yeah, 9th in the state, 9th lowest in the state. But I see what you're saying about it's a significant increase, especially with the new ambulance levy coming on. But I think that we'll find that we'll be able to lower our general supplemental fund
Right.
considerably. So if we lower that one, then it could offset.
Yeah, that was the promise, that we would lower
Yeah,
general sup, and with the hospital levy going away, that would be a wash.
Yeah,
You wouldn't it wouldn't reduce anything, but it wouldn't increase anything, but this is still,
well, you can't continue at
that's
this rate.
$65 for every $100,000 valuation, right?
60, say that
65
again.
cents, 65 cents is $65 for every $100,000 of taxable valuation. I realize it's $5 a month, but it's all the other $5 a month that go along with it.
Yeah.
And I understand exactly what you're saying, and
We've been too low for too long. That's the problem. Second lowest in the state for how many years? And you can only operate at that low of a level for so long.
right.
And we could get by doing this another couple of years, but then we're out of reserves and we might be locked in to our rate. If we have too much increase in value, then we're locked into our rate and we cannot generate any additional revenue. This may be our only chance to increase that levy rate.
Well,
You don't have to make a decision
was gonna say-
today. I was gonna
Right.
talk about the timeline a little bit.
okay, let us chew
Um,
on this one.
Yeah, especially let's see what we can do with the supplemental levy. Maybe we can lower that enough that you feel comfortable bringing this one up some. March 5th is when we have to have all of the decisions made about the levy rates so that we can get it published, so that we can make our March 15th deadline for the mail. We still have to do that mailing to all the taxpayers. So
On March 15th.
March 15th.
Okay.
So March 5th is when really it would be good if we could have just all of the decisions made. Because you kind of have to have all your other decisions made to be able to determine what rate you want to be at anyway.
So when do we have to submit this to the state?
April 30th.
Oh, so they still left the April 30th.
Yeah, but we have to have the 2 hearings still.
Right.
And so our first deadline is March 5th. That's our first deadline for your setting your proposed levy rates. And then you can always, after you propose them, you can always lower them after
How
your
far?
hearing.
So let's say we hit that magic number. Do we have to wait 2 weeks to have a public hearing? In other words, what I'm saying is that, once we make that determination, let's say on the 3rd
Yeah.
of March, can we have the first public hearing on the 10th, or does it have to wait till the
No.
17th?
The soonest you can have your first public hearing is March 20th.
Okay.
That is because of that mailing that we do on the
Oh,
15th.
okay.
That's sending out to all the taxpayers, the information about where the school, the cities, the county are proposing to set their levy. And so you have to give them time to get that,
Yeah.
get that in the mail and determine if they want to come to the meeting or not.
Okay.
So you've got a little time still and I've got some more things that I'm working on for you, some more information, but that's all I have for you for today. Anything else that you're wanting from me?
I don't know, I thought while we were gathered here, have a discussion regarding comp board recommendations. We're gonna have to make a decision. Pretty hard to set everything else if we don't know. Of course, these numbers, I want to make sure I'm right. These numbers, these ending fund balance is not the one that you just gave us, but all the others are predicated upon the comp board's recommendation and what everybody put in their budget.
Yep.
Okay. And I and I understand Abby's point that we are, Lyon County would be 207. Boone is 219, it would be in between those two at 217, but I think we just need some opportunity, some time to digest that. Because I agree, the overall number, 217, is certainly not bad, but it still is a significant increase where we're at. But your point is, and I don't think you're necessarily wrong, given the appetite currently up at the State House, chances are we will be restricted in some form or another, or it looks like, I don't know, but.
And then what are you gonna do to provide services if you cut yourself so low that you can't meet your expenses, your necessary expenses?
I know, we're like a dog chasing our tail.
That's the problem that they've created. You don't want to go as low as what you possibly can because you may never be able to get back up there again. It's unfortunate because, there's been.
Well, and one of the things that we do, and I would like, I really truly wish that we had news media here, that we could have conversation that would get reported. I'm just saying, I just like to have news media present, but anyway, that being said. I think it's important that the folks understand the position that we're in, and what we're trying to do here. And it just takes one small hiccup. There's a lot of things that will go by the wayside. And we pay for a lot of things out of the rural basic fund. And, we have, for example, the secondary roads transfer. Not advocating anything one way or the other, I'm just simply saying. On one level, you look at that and you say, well, I've got flexibility in that I don't have to transfer the $1 million. Which is true, we don't have to transfer the $1 million. But if we don't transfer the $1 million, then it impacts his revenue, external revenue from other sources, because it's considered, correct me if I'm wrong, it's
Local
considered match. So anything, so if we reduce that, I don't want to say it, say it's a 20% match at $1 million. Well, okay, if it's a 20% match at 500, you can see what 500,000, 20% of $500,000, if it's 20%, is considerably less on the other end also.
Yes.
And so it has an impact on that. So they have us, what's the word I'm looking for? They've got us coming and going. I've always long believed, and this, it's nothing I can do about it, but I've always long believed that all the money should go into a bucket. I'm not saying the legislature doesn't have a right to make sure that we spend wisely, but it goes into a bucket. And then we put the money where we need to put the money, rather than being constrained by this fund and that fund and this fund.
I agree with you on that.
They say, oh, well, you can't, you can spend this money out of general basic because everybody pays into general basic, but you can't spend money out of rural basic for this, even though we need it, because not everybody contributes to rural basic. I've been told that many times that I can't spend money here and there. It's by somebody who shall remain nameless, but it rhymes with Shannon. So, moving forward, I think give us some time to digest the rural basic deal and what the board may want to do there,
And I'll get you some estimates on general supplemental too, so that, because I feel like that might make it feel a little more comfortable for you.
Well, I know that to offset the 75 cents, we gotta go 48. Because the hospitals was 27. Those two numbers total 75 cents. And that's what we told the taxpayers. And then at some point, obviously, and I don't know when that'll all come to pass, but we all know as of right now, the statutory limit in general basic is 350. And there's 32 cents that'll have to come off of that unless,
We
Something
can't take
changes.
anything off of general basic. If we take anything off of general basic, we can't have a supplemental levy.
no, what I'm
It'll all
saying
have
is,
to come off a supplemental.
okay, but what I'm saying is the general basic statutory limit have to reach 350 by 2029.
Oh, yes,
That's
yes,
what I'm talking about.
yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
So at some point, unless the legislature changes directions, there's another 32 cents that we're going to lose out of general basic. And while we're having to get down to that, you and I both know, or we all know, that in that 4-year span we're talking about, prices of operations are going to go this way, while our revenue is going to go
Yes.
this way.
Yeah.
I don't know how you make that work. And even if we increase the rural basic, you're still limited on what you can pay for out of rural basic. Okay. That's enough so far. So yeah, if you would do that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about, we can even talk about it now if you want to.
And Darcy and I are working on an evaluation of the insurance to make sure that that 13,030 is still gonna cover all of our expenses in there. They're raising the Wellmark premium staying the same, but they're raising the IGHCP fee per employee to by $5 a month, I think she said. So not a huge increase, but
Around figures 100 employees, so about $6,000 for the year.
so we're working through those numbers to make sure that we keep a fund balance.
Excuse me. Are we doing pretty good on our cell phone?
I thought it was looking a little lower this month, but you know, we had some months in there where we didn't pay from supplemental because our supplemental fund was getting low, so maybe that we might need to raise that just a little bit, but it wouldn't be much if we do. We're still working on that though.
Because our property insurance taking a jump, or you don't know anything about it?
Abby's working on that.
The total increase for the county is less than $9,000. Because you guys decided to take on a higher deductible.
That's good news.
So I just literally today got, so he had sent the invoice and I was working with the numbers and noticed that the value to contribution numbers were not matching. And what made me notice was the sheriff's went up significantly and the ambulance went down significantly. So I asked them about it, and with the formula, like how the spreadsheet was set up, lines got off. So they just sent the new updated version, and I will get that coded this week. See if Darcy can do a special check so
But
that
you're
they
not
can get paid.
You're not anticipating a big jump like last year. then?
No, it's like 86 or $8,700 total for the county.
That's good news.
It's like last year was 419,000. This year's like 427 roughly.
Well, yeah, see, and that's, you don't think about it in those terms. You talk about an $8,700 jump. Then when you hear the full premium of $300 or $430,000, this is what the news media can put out there for us, that this is not.
That does include cyber in that as well.
Okay, so we'll chew on this here, and now if you'll get us
Yeah.
stuff for general stuff, will be.
Yeah. What are you guys thinking about whether you want to meet with any more of the department heads again. Or is it too early to know?
Well, I honestly had,
Might be too early to know,
Okay,
but I think we still need to go back through and ask them where they cut more. Let them be part of that cutting. If, I'm talking, not you.
I mean, that's. What's your for, so, I mean, that's to ask, you know, I mean, because everybody showed an increase, so if you could limit the amount of the increase.
Well,
And I know that that's difficult too, because they got the same problem, everybody's got the same problem that we, three of us have, is trying to deal with that, but by the same token. Anyway, yeah. At this point, don't have anybody in particular in mind, but like Susie said, you know, even just sending out a memo saying, okay, we appreciate everything everybody's done. However, we would request that you cut your budgets by 50% of what you submitted on.
Oh,
How do you think that flies?
I think you'd have some pretty mad people.
Yeah,
I'm in the eyeballs pop out.
then an hour later, send out, oh, we got the decimal point wrong.
yeah. Yeah,
Record how many phone calls you get in that hour.
yes, well, and when we sent out Abby's finger slip, it was 0.5. My bad. But I think coupled with that, we have to tackle what I do as far as salary increases go.
Mhm. I, for one, think everybody needs a little something.
Oh, I do too, but I'm gonna ask another question, something for you to chew on that not necessarily has anything to do with the comp board. But, I mean, with some exception, the reason I say some exception is because we hire employees on a probationary status. So they're not at their.
They haven't reached their optimal level.
Right. Well, my question would be to the board, not any decision made today, but just chew on to think about. Is all of the pay raises that occurred during the course of the year. Above and beyond what we authorize. Or not authorize, I don't like that word, what we approve, whatever, based on the comp board and that sort of thing. Because if we're building, and this goes back to what you just said, Susie. If we come back and say, we'd like you to cut your budgets, some, whatever it is, 2%, 5%, 3%, whatever the number might be. Well, where am I gonna find that? Well, maybe we'll find it in those mid-year raises. Because not everybody gets mid-year raises.
Yes.
And so I think that we'll leave it up to them as far as where they cut it, but I just want the board to chew on it, think about it, and whether or not. You know, if we do 5%, if we do 7%, if we go with what the comp board says, I know I talked to a school board member over the weekend, well, Friday night, I guess it was, as a precursor to the conference board meeting, wanting to know what we were thinking, and I said, I can't tell you what we were thinking because we haven't really talked about it in length. I said, what I'm thinking. And he was referencing the fact that the assessor had set 5% in his budget, which is what he went with in his budget was a 5% increase. And so we were talking about that because his school district, they're not going to go near that amount. But he says, I have a hard time saying no on this hand if I go yes on this hand. But he says, I don't think that that's an unreasonable request. And I said, well, that's the arm wrestling contest that we all are involved in. And I don't think we can look at. On the one hand, I think you look, but on the other hand, I don't think you can look at what another county is going to do. But that's a two-way street, and I want to make that point. I'm going to say because Van Buren County is considering 0% does not necessarily translate that way to us, but by the same token, I don't want to have it come back the other way and say, well, Van Buren County is considering 10%. You can't have your cake and eat it too. If you don't want to pay attention to the 0%, then you're not gonna pay attention to the 10%. It's us and what we can do and what we can't do, and look at our situation with the information that Shannon provides to us and. Our ending fund balances actually look pretty decent. So now the only thing I want to hear from Shannon is that sustainable? With those increases? Not levy increases, but the increases. Can you sustain that? Because we don't know. There's so many unknowns coming out of Des Moines at this point that. And the three of us are gonna have to sell the general public on whatever it is that we do. Whatever that looks like is the reason why.
Well, we already did 0% last year, and that was really hard on employee morale.
Yeah,
I agree, I've seen that.
Especially with the mid-year raises for some and some boards decided to give their employees, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but the assessor's office and Semco Conservation, their employees got raises.
well, I look at it, for me, there's three contributing factors. The first one you just said, and Susie's has acknowledged it, that, you know, you all need something. What that something looks like, we haven't determined yet. We've got some recommendations. Being able to sustain that something. And in the past, we had the luxury of looking at things and saying, okay, we'll give X. And then the next year, we had an unexpected expense, or maybe our self-fund will cost us a lot more. You know, whatever the case may be, we could look at the levy and raise the levy 2 or 3 cents or something to help. We no longer have that luxury. And knowing that one of our levies is gonna have to drop on average 8 cents a year over the next 4 years to get 32 cents out of it. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be 8 cents each year. I'm just saying if we have to get to a target.
I would recommend waiting until that last year
Well, and
to build your fund balance.
okay.
Yeah.
But there again, this is what we're saying. Build the fund balance, because at some point, now we're gonna start eating into those reserves after you get to that statutory limit, unless we cut things. And the things you're gonna have to cut that cost you the most amount of money, dare I say it, are employees and or services, one or the other. So, and maybe, I don't know, we'll see what.
That is our main expense in the general basic fund.
Then maybe we better start now on the employees. We have an employee that retires or resigns, they got replaced unless it's in the smaller offices. Some of these, like the road department or the sheriff's department, we might have to not allow them to hire someone.
Through attrition, right? To where if somebody leaves, we don't replace that.
So you got a fancy word for that.
The same thing I said last year.
Okay,
I
it's just something to look at
Thank you.
instead of laying somebody off, do it that way.
No, I get that, but
So.
here's the downside to that is, or the upside, I guess, depending upon your perspective, is we've had a lot of, in particular in the road department, you know, we've had 3 or 4 employees that were long-term 40-year employees that hung up their track shoes, which was, and they were great employees, and we brought in new folks at a significantly lower rate than what those folks were getting, which has also reduced our risk on our health insurance, because when they get my age, I cost you more money. So younger people.
In other words, you don't die quick enough.
That's right. The younger people, in theory, cost us less money. The risk is not as
Yes,
great.
yes.
So those are all positives,
Yeah.
but,
It's gonna be on a case by case.
right, but where I was going with that is, we don't have very many people in the retirement queue, because we're pretty young overall in our employees right now. With the exception of the 3 of us,
You and Joe anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't cost you any money on insurance and stuff, so. Anyway, it just, you know.
So let's talk about Joe's point where we don't replace somebody that leaves.
Right,
That's not saying we couldn't replace them at some point. Right now, we've got to look at stuff like that.
sure, absolutely.
This office here, they're all, I mean, it's four employees. They're busy. They can't get by without somebody else, but someplace like maybe the sheriff's department or the road department, the others can pick up the slack.
You know,
I just have to look at it, see what everybody's job description is and stuff.
I guess I'm sitting here thinking, of course, the smaller departments should be, you know, if you lose somebody, maybe they job share with another department. Yeah, I don't know.
We
Yeah.
can get you information from ISAC. They have compiled information about the number of employees in county
Could we
offices.
have that, please?
Yeah.
I know you have a lot to do.
You
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 guys, I
can look
appreciate
at that and evaluate
Yeah,
if we're looking overstaffed in any of the departments. I mean, I know it's not always apples to
I
apples.
know, I
Sometimes
know.
this department does more in this county than they do in that
Right.
county,
just something
but
to look at.
yeah, it's something
Well,
to.
and a perfect example of that is a situation with Mark's office. And with all of the foreign nationals that they have come in and
Right.
they're doing all of the driving and the licenses, like. A lot of counties, and I'll just pick on Van Buren County, but not because of anything other than. They may have one less employee than we have, but they have a significant. Traffic, yeah, regarding getting driver's licenses and so on and so forth. You can speak to that directly, and so. As you indicated, it's not always looking at apples to apples, so we have to be cognizant of. Because we could certainly cut an employee in that department. And so in effect, then you're going to cut services. The length of time, and how many times have you heard people complain, no disrespect, I'm just pointing out facts. That they don't like the notion of having to make appointments, come in and get the driver's license, they get an unexpected day off from work. Okay, hey, I'll just run and get my license renewed since my office is closed today or whatever.
I'll be devil's advocate. What about when they have a doctor's appointment? They've got to go for a doctor's appointment. They don't really know that right away, or let's say.
Sure, but that's, no, what I'm saying is that. What I'm saying is not that I'm disagreeing with the appointments. What I'm saying is that. They're already complaining that they have to make an appointment. If we were to end up cutting an employee so that we couldn't do as much as what we're currently doing, that's going to exacerbate that problem. And we just have to be cognizant of that so that when we have the conversation with John Q. Public, saying, look, I can't function financially under the current set of circumstances, and so we either have to reduce services to keep your property taxes down, or at least level, or raise property taxes to maintain that level of service. And that's really, it's really that simple. And I agree, and so with both of you in terms of certainly taking a look at whether or not we replace somebody through attrition or whatever the case may be, and look and see whether or not it's. And obviously, there's gonna be pros and cons, so we just have to decide
At that time.
cost benefit analysis, I guess you'd say,
Mhm.
for lack of a better way of putting it. But it's certainly something that I think, and I think you're both right, it's something that needs to be. To be seriously looked at. Whether we go down that road, I don't know. But I don't think you can categorically say we won't go down that road. And I think any road we go down, and if there's somebody on the road department listening, I apologize, but I think any road you go down, you're gonna find washboards and potholes and nothing. Kind of a bumpy ride,
So you mentioned Henry County might be laying folks off.
possibly, yes. There's a circumstance, thankfully, well, I shouldn't say thankfully, not for them, but their circumstances significantly different than ours. I mean, they're talking what I say, I think about $1.20 that they're gonna have to eventually get to in the next 4 years. However, they do have a larger commercial base, but I don't think their taxable valuation is much more than ours.
I can get that.
Okay. But they're like $4 and I don't know, 82 cents, 72 cents, was what they were at on their general basic.
Along this rural here, they're clear down there. Where did I see them? Pretty close to the top. Yeah, right there. They're about what, 10 from the top? At 395. No way up.
395 is the maximum for the rural basic.
Yeah, and so you figure, when you consider where we're at versus where they're at. Okay, and I don't know whether rural basic will ever have to be cut. In other words, I don't know if the legislature will look at that. I have no idea. But the point is that $3.95 versus round figures $1.50, which is where we're at. You know, that's a hell of an increase. And they spend it, but their folks want it, and they're not complaining. And they weren't complaining, it's just that the legislature has changed the rules, it's gonna force their hand. And so
How many more rules will they change to accept?
that's a $64 question. I don't have a crystal ball. Shannon does, but I don't.
I don't have a
She
crystal
broke it
ball,
the
but I
other
do
day.
know that ISAC is working on getting some changes made to the current legislation.
I think the thing that upsets me the most about it, and I mean this in a professional sense. Our legislators have an opportunity to come here and sit down with us and talk with us. And I feel like that they don't have to be here on Monday, but they were in town on Thursday, for example. They could come, we could sit down, and we could go through it, we could show them what we're doing, what we have to do, what we have to try and all of these people that want a piece of the pie. I'm not finding fault with anybody, I'm just simply saying, like that group from Matumbo that wanted $10,000.
Over the home, yeah.
Yeah, okay. My point simply is that I've asked over and over again for the legislators to come and sit with us and see what it is. Now, 3 votes probably isn't gonna make a nickel's worth of difference, but the fact is that they at least maybe could make a coherent argument that I don't think any of them could currently make. And what really upsets me is all of those legislators that we have that are former supervisors that seem to have forgotten what it was to be on board of supervisors, or former city council members for that matter. And as it was brought up in District 5 meeting about Polk County, spending $10 million on some nonsensical BS. That they got the 10 million to spend. We don't have 10 million, period. And that's the thing that it's always rural Iowa, always, that's the hardest hit. Because they treat everybody the same when they look at it, but then all their formulas and stuff are population based.
I did share Jefferson County's information, you know, that 86,500 increase, even though valuations go up for general basic. With my sister, she is a
Oh, yeah.
clerk to 2 legislators. And then she has 4 daughters that are clerking, and each have 2.
Nice.
Well, we got
Explaining
an
how-
inside track here.
And she was gonna share it with the chair of the Ways and Means,
Good.
so,
Thank you.
because it is, it ties your hands, and, you know, I said that people are wanting services and we're being expected to give more services with less money. So she was gonna advance that and see where it went.
If they would just pay what they're requiring us to fund out of their unfunded mandates and let us take care of our roads, so on. But I remember, and this was before both of you were here, but I remember when we were looking at paving, not me. And there was a lot of talk and conversations and about the railroad underpass and all that. But Scott Twine gave us an estimate of about 1.2 million to pave Nutmeg from south up to Salina. Till the DOT got a hold of it. And it cost an additional $900,000 if we used any state funding to do that same 2 miles of road or whatever that is, because of the requirements that the DOT would place on what you had to do with the ditches, so on and so forth, which meant we would have to acquire additional land and everything. So we said, okay, my point simply is the feds are the same way. That's why we have the guardrails out on Pleasant Plain Road. It's because some pinhead in Washington DC that's never seen Pleasant Plain Road said, well, your ditches are X, so you have to have guardrails. So my whole point is that was an additional $67,000. So everything that we do, somebody else is telling us how we have to do it, and it drives the cost of everything. And which is the way it is, I guess, you access dollars from, whether it's farm to market or whether it's STP funds or whatever it is, there's gonna be rules on how that can be applied.
Yeah, I got it cut out there on that Pleasant Plain Road with one of their combines with duals on. And I went about halfway through and here come a car.
Yeah.
They had to back up. I got the darndest cussing you ever seen. Their mouth was just going like this. I just sat there with my hands up. I says, what are we gonna do? You're gonna have to back up. And so I understand out there what a mess that is.
It is, but it wasn't anything of the county's doing.
No.
We heard about it, but
Yeah, I remember coming in and complaining about putting it up out there back a few years ago, what a mess it was gonna be.
so talk to me about what you're thinking as far as pay increases. Or pay increase or percentage, let's put percentage.
Want me to go first?
Oh, no, I'll go first. It's not a big deal.
You're a veteran.
Whatever it is, I want to do what we did a couple years ago. Give them a raise. Take that same percent off the budget of each department.
You mean the total or the percent? So in other words.
Percent. Let's say, what, can we use you for an example? Abby, how much what's your guys' budget?
515,000.
Take that times 7%.
35,000.
So in other words.
Am I good or what?
Yeah,
Genius.
I know.
it was accidental. In other words, could your office take a $35,000 if you guys got a raises of 7%? No, I'm just throwing that out.
Well, and let's put that in perspective. If we look at a $4.5 million budget at 7%, that's about $300,000.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna only penalize the departments that came in really conservatively to begin with.
I agree. So in that case, do we decide to do each individual department? Therefore, some
Well-
would be different. I can imagine that. Get ready for those phone calls.
First off, I just, for sake of argument, we really only are talking about the elected officials, which has a direct, in some instances, has a direct correlation to what Shannon would get, what you would get, based on whatever.
With what they would do.
Right.
Do what Christie got because.
Right. But then, there is this, I hate this term, but there is the rank and file that don't fall under those state guidelines. As far as that part of it goes. So, your road department, your deputies, your public health employees, all of those, anything that, your engineer, all of those folks are. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask, you set a percentage and say, okay. We'd like to see everybody cut their budget asking by 2%. I'm just hypothetical, I'm just throwing out there. I don't know what that would look like overall, I have no idea. I don't know if it's doable, but in terms of. What you have in front of you right now,
Lee, that's probably why we have the individual departments come in. Like we would say, to the
Right.
sheriff, you need to cut your budget by 120,000. These guys would say, you need to cut your budget by 7,000. So we
So
would
we're-
treat
so
them
we're- yeah.
individually.
so with all of the figures now let's keep in mind. That we had some departments that plugged in 10%. I don't know, I don't remember who they were, but some did. Okay,
Conservation, the sheriff and public health.
okay, sheriff did 10%. Okay, so obviously right there. And let me put it this way, let's say it this way. So any fund balance currently projected for general basic. If you spend everything, right, that's the term you use, is $2 million, round figures. Okay. And that's if we did it the way everybody did it in each of their budgets. So if I came back and said,
Uh-oh.
Don't forget, that was without any of the ambulance. And we need to pay for the first few months of the ambulance.
right, but we're looking, I mean, okay, I get that. Okay, but I mean, we're still looking at, so what I'm saying is that we come back and we say, okay, everybody plugged, with the exception of the assessor, everybody plugged in at least 7%. And some plugged in 10%. Is that a fair assessment? Okay. So when we come back and say, okay, here's what we're gonna do, 6%. What does that look like? What does it do to that? Number?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to know that.
Do what?
I'd like to know that.
Yeah, okay. Because it's, the only reason I say it that way is because that's going to change the way that the sheriff's department and the jail budget looks, because that's a 4% cut in wages, which also is social
Or
security. which is
proposed
also
wages,
IRS.
not wages.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, what I'm speaking.
Yeah,
I'm saying is
understand.
that when you cut the 4% proposed, it affects the bottom line of that budget.
Yes.
Would affect the bottom line of your budget somewhat. And Mark's, and whomever, everybody's.
Sure.
Okay, I think if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Chris plugged in 10%. Okay. No finding fault, I'm just trying, but I'm saying that will. So if you look at that, what that translates to in terms of not only the actual salary, but the IPERS and the social security. Let's see what that does to that number. What would it do? Would it do anything to this? Real basic,
Yes.
okay?
So Abby can get the salary information together and figure out what kind of a bottom line that would be, and then
And it would affect general sub as well?
I can get those fund balance worksheets updated.
That's just a suggestion.
That's my thoughts on it, yes. Because, I first thought too, cut each department by a percentage of what the raise was, but you guys are on such a small budget compared to
Yeah.
the others.
Yeah,
And I realized
if
looking
you
at-
cut 7% out of ours, that is more than what our wages would be.
Yeah, you said 11,000 is your
Yeah.
increase, and you're at 7%.
That didn't include the new machine, but
Which costs?
maybe.
Okay. Did you order that?
No.
Okay.
And
We need to.
we could offset that cost by letting that department do HR and getting trained.
I'm not
Just-
ready to think about that HR.
Well, we're gonna have to think about it before.
Oh, I know that, but I think we need to really talk about some stuff.
Yeah, but I'm just saying
Because this is
that,
it's gonna be a level of confidentiality that these girls are gonna have to adhere to, and I know they will, but that's a lot of pressure.
yeah,
People are used to walking in and say, hey, Abby, can you tell me this? Shannon, can you tell me that? That can't happen anymore.
I have to be careful about elections. I can't just tell everybody everything.
Well, yeah, I know that, but I'm just saying, I know how things are. I know. It's gonna put a lot of pressure on you guys.
Well, whatever decision you make has to be made,
So we
By
can
March.
give notice
yeah,
by March
Well,
31st.
because
right?
if you're gonna take it out of your budget.
Mhm.
If you're gonna eliminate the $10,200, you gotta do that before you certify your budget, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
And, uh, and unless they present a new contract, they don't have anything after June 30th or whatever, huh?
Yeah,
30th.
but we still have to give them notice. We don't?
That's contract
You don't?
expires, it's done.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, they would, I would presume they would submit a new contract. Or request a new contract, but there's no, what you said, don't have to give notice. Because that contract automatically renewed and then for that 2 years and then it's done. So you get us those numbers? You'll get us those numbers. That, and I don't think they've got. Get with the agenda.
Oh, I know.
Huh?
I know.
So opioid at 8:30 on Tuesday. Oh, that's tomorrow. I had a date at Hardee's.
Well, you'll have to cancel.
You don't
Well, we
have to
could-
cancel because they just all hash stuff out.
Yeah,
You got 22 hours to cancel it. What more do you need?
well, I figure if we could be out here at 9 o'clock, I could still make it over there before 10:30.
Oh, that'll never work.
Okay,
Call them for an order to go, and if you get there at 12 o'clock, they'll have it ready.
Yeah.
so since we're scheduling Wednesday, what is it that we had to do on Wednesday?
Assessors conference board.
Oh, man.
Yes. Do you want to, since that's 8:30 in the morning, do you want to have another budget session?
Yeah.
Time.
Well, I assume conference board will be over with by 9.
Yeah, I don't think it takes long.
9.
On Wednesday.
Yeah, because we'll be here at 8:30.
Ah, shit, I got a feeling. We'll be done by 10:30. I got a feeling for the third.
It'll be done for whatever. I mean, it just presents us with some new numbers.
Okay, and I can sneak out.
Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah, because the three of us, we get one vote, so
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to, Joe.
You're telling me I don't count.
If that's your translation, yes, but no, I'm not.
okay?
Yep.
So I better write that down too. I got the 8:30, but
So I should forget about this.
I know, I'm horrible, aren't I? So I guess unless you young ladies have got something else, that's about,
That's all I had.
huh?
That's all I had.
Okay. We'll go from there and see what on Wednesday, and we'll see maybe what those numbers look like. And in the meantime, if you want to kick around the question that we are not go around the little paper, and you'll get some more numbers on that too, and then we can go from there. It's not easy. Whatever we do is going to be wrong, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful sense, but
No, somebody's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you don't really have a choice but to raise it some on rural basic this year, but it's just how much you're comfortable with.
Well, and again, seeing what we can do at dental supplement.
Yeah, that'll help.
So, okay,
Sounds good.
so do we need a motion to adjourn on this?
Move to adjourn. We beat it. so.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.